was chosen by our friends in Malmo, which is in Sweden, I learned, and was illustrated by somebody named Olween, which is the perfect Sweden name, and it's a great illustration. Our speaker today, Traca Savadogo, founded the Masterclass series for documentary filmmakers, helped launch Dinner with Your Muslim Neighbor series, and created the Women Negotiation series in partnership with the Foster School of Business at the University of Washington. She's the author of an interview series called Curiosity Conversations, and in 2017 was the official interviewer for TEDx. Please join me in welcoming Traca to the stage.
Wow, this is really cool. I got some friends in the audience, so thank you. Oh, hi, Tracy. So, first of all, I wanted to say thank you. It's a big deal to get here. First thing in the morning, I've got some friends that never get up at this time of day. And it's just a big sacrifice to get here, and I want to load this with as much information as possible, something that you can take away, tangible, that we're going to be able to put into action right away. As we talked about, I write these stories called Curiosity Conversations. And one of the things about being super curious is that I believe that everybody has a story. Everybody. And I want to take a moment and look around. Have you look around? Whose story do you know in this room? Who's here? We're in the Seattle Public Library, which is the temple for great stories and the collections that are here. And yet, I'm willing to bet that there's even better stories in this room. Because you create them. I want to leave you with the idea that I think we all want to be appreciated. And we all want to think that our life matters. And that we've created something magical with our time on earth. And I don't know why the best stories about people get told when they're dead. Right? Yeah? I think we have an opportunity to change that. And I think we should. I think we should get really, really curious about what your story is and what your story is. And what do you have to tell me? What is the thing that matters most to you? What is happening in your world? So I got some notes. Hold on a sec. Let me take a look, because I'm not usually up here talking. If in a normal circumstance, I'd be in the crowd introducing all of you all. And that's my native habitat, is making sure that while we have an opportunity to be in the room together, we maximize that opportunity. Because this is a once-in-a-lifetime shot. We are never, ever going to be able to get this group of people together again. Ever. So who's here? What stories are here? What stories between you and me, and who's sitting next to you? Do you know? Did you say hi to the person sitting next to you? What do you know about them? I know that the former editor of the Wall Street Journal is in this room, right? I know that a cancer survivor is in this room. I know that, who else is in this room? He's pioneered a movement about the sitting disease. I know that there's all kinds of magic that's happening here. And so what I want to do is give you some tools to think about having your own curiosity conversations. Because really that's what it's about. Is when you walk out of this room, how do you have your own conversations to unlock the magic that's behind the people that you encounter every day? One of the things that I have this avatar on Facebook, and it's of a Thai symbol, and the guy's doing this. And in Thailand, that's how people greet each other. And they say, Swadika, Swadika. And you know what that means? That means I treasure your soul. Can you imagine saying that like 30 times a day? I treasure your soul. And oh yeah, you definitely. Megan and Brenna. And I think that's really important. Like, we all want to matter to somebody, right? And I think about that. It's like, okay, well, wait a minute. So you go to work. You're in competition with those people. Who cares about your dreams, right? Who's helping amplify you, right? You go home. Your work is the thing that's taking you away from your family. And then you're hanging out with your friends. Like, who actually ever gets an opportunity to hear about the things that matter most to you, right? Like at work, oh my God, I had a great, great day, a good victory lap moment. Who hears about that? Whoever gets to hear about that? You know, my friend here, she travels all around the world. Where have you been? Who did you meet? I sat next to a guy on a plane one day. I was coming back from New Orleans, and I was like, oh, I'm so over it. I can't talk to any more people. And then like the last 20 minutes, hi Marlon, the last 20 minutes, I started to talk to him, and I was like, what were you doing in New Orleans? He's like, I'm a musician. Really? Who do you play? Like, what do you play? He's like, I play the drums. Yeah, who do you play with? He's like, Natalie Cole. I'm on a 3-hour flight with this guy, and I don't even find out I'm sitting next to him until the last 20 minutes. What a terrible lost opportunity that was, right? And that happens all the time, right? And so I want to encourage you to get curious about who's next to you. Who do you bump into? Who's in this room? The fact that you're willing to get up at 8:30 in the morning and be here, drive across town, and sit in this room to talk about curiosity, that already says we have something in common. Huge, huge. So one of the things that people always ask me is like, like networking sucks, right? Like it's always about you and what you want to like lay on somebody else. So I want to change the narrative on that and say that the most powerful thing that you can do is listen to somebody else. That's a huge, huge gift. Like who truly hears you, right? But I think you need to be armed with some questions about how to get into this conversation. What do you do at work? You know, it's not always like the most exciting entry, but oftentimes I'll ask things about things that matter. I don't think people wear like pins on their jackets or their hats that don't mean things to them. There's meaning-making things on our visual exterior all the time. So I asked a woman, I was sitting waiting for a bus, and she had the cancer logo, the what do they call that? The ribbon on her shirt. And I was like, well, what is that? What does that mean to you? She said, well, I'm a cancer survivor. Really? What kind of cancer? I don't even remember. And I said, you know, the thing is, like, when people are really hurting, I want to know, what's the thing you wish people knew about while you're hurting? How can we take better care of you when you're hurting? She's like, you know what? People come to me, well, first of all, there's a whole bunch of people that start avoiding you when you have cancer, right? But then the people that do come, that's all they want to talk about. She's like, that's the last thing I want to talk about. And I was like, yeah, hi. And she's like, but I just want to have a normal conversation, right? And I was like, okay, well, what was the thing that bothered you the most about having cancer? She's like, you know what? I'm Native American, and my hair means a lot to me, and I lost it. And she's like, and I never thought about that, right? I mean, like women, we're vain, right? We love our hair. But like in the Native American community, I never thought about it through that lens. And she's like, you know what, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like the best thing that ever happened to me is I work for Value Village. And I had everybody bringing me clothes, food. They paid my wages. And I was just like, whoa, oh my God. And here I am sitting, waiting for a bus. And all I did was ask about the pin on our shirt. And that's the kind of conversation I walked away with, right? I have another friend of mine named Jana. And when we met, she's got this like gnarly scar all the way across her chest. And I think people get scars, and they're really monumental moments in their life, right? But we avoid talking about that kind of stuff. But it's your moment. It's a thing that like altered the course of your life. Why don't we talk about that stuff? I mean, I talk about it with care, right? But one of the things I asked her, I'm like, hey, do you mind? Can I ask you, like, what's the deal with that? She's like, I got the flu. I had a flu shot, but I got a different strain of flu that year. And I got an infection, and it damaged my heart. And I had to get an apparatus called an LVAD implanted in my body, and I have to wear this pack that keeps me alive. I can't be around without my backup battery for longer than 30 seconds. I'm like, oh my God, really? And then since I've talked to her about that, now she's like 35. She's had a heart transplant because she got the flu. And I was like, that exact same year, I got the exact same flu, right? I went to the hospital with an infection in the lining of my heart so bad I couldn't breathe. And my life could have been totally different, right? Jana's a champ, and she's got a new heart. And every day she gives gratitude to the person who died and the family who was willing to give up that heart. All I did was ask her about her scar. But it provided an opportunity for her to talk about her condition. But I got something out of it too. It's like win-win, right? But there's a release in being able to talk about the things that matter to you. Who asks you about the things that matter to you? The other day, I was, this talk sold out in like 2 hours. I'm like, what? And then I went to work, and I went to an event after that. I was surrounded by people all day long, and not one single person asked me, honestly, how are you? What's happening in your world? It crushed me. I'm like, I have good news, people. And it was just like, I had no one to share it with, right? I mean, of course I share it on Facebook, but, right? But in person, I just wanted to test, like, who's going to ask? Not one person. People I've worked with for 6 months, nothing, right? People I've worked with for 6 months, they have no idea I'm here. None, no clue. So how often do we miss the most significant moments in people's lives? Or the opportunity to even share it? I think the sharing part's the coolest part, right? But listen, and it's a give and take, right? So it's a listening thing. I'm gonna check my notes here again, because I don't want to leave anything out. But you guys feeling me on this? You get it? Okay. So things to talk about. Eventually, we're gonna break up in circles and have a talk. Is that right, David? David? Yeah. Okay. So one of the things that I want you to start looking for are little clues. Being curious enough to ask. I mean, we want to talk about stuff. I crave the opportunity to talk about any little thing, right? And we never get the chance. So I think that's the golden opportunity. So one of the things I'm looking for, I'm looking for pins, logos, a shirt, if you got a logo on your shirt, I'm going to ask you about it. Like, okay, you were on a fishing vessel in Alaska. How did that happen? What's the story about that? What were you fishing for? You got any cool stories? Like, what happened? What happened? When you want to tell your life story, what's the thing? What's the thing that like was the most monumental moment that happened to you while you were on the boat? Where did you go? I'm looking for one time this guy was waiting for a bus and he had a notebook in his hand and he wasn't willing to let it go. Wasn't going to sit it down waiting 20 minutes for the bus. And I was like, hey man, what's in your notebook? Who would ask that? Right? Yeah, awesome. What's in your notebook? And he opened it up and he showed me, and they were all original drawings that and he was a graffiti artist. And he proceeded to tell me about the best places to do graffiti. And there's like a place, a skate park over in Soto that the guy lets everybody do their like practice work on. And I was like, I've always wondered, I think graffiti artists are really bad marketers because you can never read what they're saying. What's the deal about that? like, can we talk about that? And so there's like opportunities like that, like paying attention to clues. Like the other day, I was on the bus and there's this, I don't know if you guys have seen it, but there's an Instagram feed that is men reading books. Have you seen that? It's like, it's so hot, right? And it's like, right? And so there's this guy sitting next to me, and he's reading a book, and he's hot, like decks, head to toe, like so hot. And I was like, this can't be real. Like, and he's reading Shakespeare. Like, this is too good to be true, right? And I was like, all right, I got to ask him. I'm like, what's the deal about your book? And he's like, I'm in a play. Total twist. I wasn't expecting that. Were you? No. Anyway, and the other thing I like to ask about is tattoos. You don't put something on your body and have it there for the rest of your life without it having to mean something or a good story. Like my dad's is that he was totally drunk and he and his buddies went and got tattoos, but whatever. But the other day I ran across the guy. He had 3 little lines tattooed right there. I was like, this is the weirdest thing I've ever seen. Like, why? What is this? And I started to make up a story in my head. How often do you look at things and you start making up your own story, right? You're like, some hipster thing. I'm out of the loop or on that or whatever. I don't know. Maybe it's a logo I've never seen before or whatever. And I was like, hey, can I ask you? I always ask for permission. Can I ask you? Well, I don't always ask for permission. Sometimes. Anyway, so I asked him, I'm like, can I ask you about that? What's the deal about that tattoo? You know what he said? I couldn't even make this up. He's like, my grandfather was an artist, and that was his signature on his paintings. What? How crazy is that? It's so amazing. So I find people utterly fascinating. And they're even more incredible than the stories I make up in my mind. Right? And I think that we are, by not engaging and tapping into our inner 5-year-old and the curious person that she or he is, we're leaving a lot on the table. Like a lot. And so I have the opportunity where I type up these stories and I tell people about it. I'm currently working on a book about it. But I think that I would like to encourage you to start having your own curiosity conversations and start asking that question. Like this lady here with a stuffed animal on her head, what is that all about? What's the story? Oh my God. Who did that? I just think that's so amazing. So, anyway, how are we doing? Yeah? Okay. And so, I don't know, you guys want to hear some more stories? Yeah? Okay. Let's talk about Megan. Right? Can you stand up for a second? Yeah. So you guys know Megan? So Megan, you can go ahead and sit down. So Megan and I got introduced by Mike Graham, who I work with on Startup Grind. And at the time, she was getting ready to start an all-female law firm. How cool is that? And then we got together for coffee, and I was like, how did that even start? And I think it started, my version of the story is that it started because she took some time off of work and was listening to a bunch of TEDx talks, and she got really upset about how many men there were taking the stage, right? Yeah, close. I'm close. Eventually, the stories take on my own version. But anyway, and then, so she started this law firm, and then she wanted to gather female founders of companies, and she started the F-Bomb Breakfast Club. They meet every Friday, or one Friday a month, and they talk about their challenges and issues of being a female founder. And now it started a little over a year ago, and there's 1,500 people in like a little over a year. I think she's utterly fascinating. Anyway, Jana had a near-death experience. So, and I find that utterly fascinating that I've never even really talked to you much about that, but it was a game changer, right? Like, so these moments in your life, they matter. And so I think when we break up into conversations, I want to encourage you to start thinking about the things that matter to you. And you, how'd you break your arm? Rotator cuff repair. How did you do that? Oh. We're all getting old. Even though we don't look at it. Yeah, this guy the other day, so like things like that, right? This guy the other day, I met him and he had a brace on and I was like, well, what happened there? And he's like, oh, I broke my back. What? How did you do that? He was like, I was snowboarding and I wasn't paying attention and I landed on some rocks. And he's like out walking around. I'm like, what? And then he hurled this thing of beer. I'm like, oh man, you've avoided death like many times, right? He's like, yeah. So, anyway, are we ready? Yeah? Okay. So, I'm going to let David do this, but we're going to break up in circles and have a little chat, and then we're going to come back for a Q&A. So, what I want to do is encourage you to start asking questions and looking for the clues that are in this room. And each person what is their story? How do you want to be remembered? Like if you die today, how do you want people to tell your story? You ever thought about that? It's going to happen one day. I mean, really, and you have a chance to shape it, right? I'll tell you a quick little story before we do this. My brother died suddenly a couple years ago. And in the funeral, there were notes about his life on 2 different podiums. They were in 2 different parts of the room. The notes about his life were on a different podium. So the guy that was doing the eulogy totally bullshitted his way through it. He didn't know my brother at all, right? And I was like, man, if you knew my brother was a marathon trainer. The weekend he died, the following weekend, he was supposed to run 2 marathons in 2 different states that weekend, right? Nobody knew that. Nobody knew that. My brother did embassy security for the Marines in Moscow, The Hague, Japan, and then he taught at Quantico. And he traveled around the world once a month. He had frequent flyer miles out the ass. And nobody knew any of this stuff, right? So how are how are we going to tell our stories? How are we going to tell the most magical stories? How are we going to capture them long before we're dead? Yeah? Okay, so David, I'm going to turn this over to you. Yeah?
Thank you. So I'm going to give you some specific instructions here. So what we're going to do is we're going to break up into small groups, and these tend to work best between 5 and 7 people. So try to find 5 to 7 people around you. And we're going to take 5 minutes. So for those introverts out there, like, you can do it. It's just 5 minutes, I promise. And the assignment is you each have to ask one person in your group a question. And you heard a bunch of great sort of prompts from Traca earlier here. So one question to somebody else in your group. Try and make sure everybody gets asked a question if possible. And we'll take 5 minutes to do that, and then we will come back and we'll have some time for Q&A with Traca. Go.
So who's got a story? Talk to me. Yeah. My hair? Yeah. It's called Cherry Bomb. And it's by Revlon. It's straight out of a box. Why? So I've been red for a really long time, not natural. And then I just decided, you know what? I'm going to stand out some more. And I switched up the color not too long ago, and now I stop traffic. So thank you. My whole family's red. Most of them are natural. My brother was a redhead. It was totally wasted on him, but I've been paying for it for a really long time. Questions? Anybody else have questions? Yeah? What did we learn? Who's got a good story? Yeah, talk to me. What? You went to the same high school and you just met here? What? Oh my God. Wait, you too? No. This whole section all went to high school and didn't know each other. Oh my gosh, that's so amazing. It wasn't Garfield, was it? No? Okay. What else did we learn? Who's got a cool story? What did you learn? Hi, Cynthia. What?
And she provides...
Wait, start over again.
Cynthia is a... stand up, Cynthia. Cynthia was sharing, based on her pin, that she is a volunteer baby cuddler, specifically for babies that were born addicted to opioids, because love and care is the most important thing to get them healthy. So it's an amazing thing to do.
Right? Who doesn't want to be swaddled and hugged like the first part of their life? I love that. I know, I could use a hug. Actually, the other day I met this guy and he had I saw just a finger, right? And I was like, what's the deal with, what do you got going on? And he put his fists together and it's like free hugs. He's like, you want one? I'm like, yeah. Bring it on. So what else did we learn? Who's got a story? Yeah? Ooh, here.
So Jen, while we were talking about what do you want to be remembered for, she shared the story about how she's already art directed her funeral. And it's beautiful because she has seen a video. Sony had an ad for Bravia, and there were balls dropping, and she said color is one of the things that's really important to her. And then that just naturally led to the question about, you must be a designer, because she's also got kicking shoes on. You got to take a look at them. But just the whole part, she saw this video and she sent it out to a group of friends, and just so it told them how I want my funeral, which is ideally, given her age, years in the future, but just the idea that she could convey to her friends, this is what's so meaningful to me. I thought was really a beautiful statement about her life.
Thank you. Awesome. What else did we learn? Anything? Yeah? Who's got a story? Yeah? Let's hear it. I'm loving your stories even more. This is great.
All right, stand up group. Come on, just for a second. And look around so people can see. We all have glasses. So, I had to find out about this. So we have one person who got his glasses about 35 and was really excited because you can pick out really cool glasses. So it's like, at last I get to be, get the fashion accessory. Well, I got mine at 13 and that was not in the equation at all. Nathan was at an opera and couldn't read the super titles. He's like, what's that say? And I think you need glasses, that's what it says. Doug's a designer and, too much squinting, and finally he's going, something's off here. So that's, and Nathan's behind me, or not Nathan, Nathan's next to me, Jason's behind me. Sydney was sneaky, she ran the clock out. But we all had stories about when we got them, and with Jason's, it was similar to mine, where, whoa, there are a lot of details I didn't know about. In his case, it was like, my teacher is bald, and the periodic chart has got more than just colors on it. With me, it was, there are stars in the sky, and those trees in the winter have limbs on them. So it was just like picking up details in the world, and we all remember something like that we didn't even know was there until we got the glasses. And you also, so he takes his son in because he knows his son needs glasses, and the doctor says, here's your prescription. Total denial here. He's like, prescription? Are you crazy? I don't need glasses. Then they come and he puts them on. Whoa, what's all that? So everybody had a story. Everybody remembered roughly when they got them and what they saw that they didn't know about before.
I don't even know that I would ask that question, but I love that. What's the first thing you saw when you got your glasses on that you noticed that you never noticed before? Anyway, my first glasses were Jordache, and they had a horse on the side, and I thought I was hot shit. Anybody else? Yeah? Oh, you're too far up there. Come on down. I'm not climbing. Wait, you got to get me on the mic. Sorry. All right, project, and I'll retell it. Blue shirt, Oscar. What? A Halloween wedding? Okay, so Oscar got his shirt at the Goodwill. You all hear this? I'm going to say it just for the podcast. But so Oscar got his shirt at the Goodwill. Huh? Oserat. Okay, we got it. Oseroff. Okay, did I get it? Close. No, I'm butchering his name completely. This is where I'd ask you to spell it. What's your ethnic heritage? Where'd your family come from? When were they immigrants? All that kind of stuff. But whatever. So favorite purchase at Goodwill was a jacket that had orange buttons on it, and he wore it to a Halloween wedding. I knew somebody that did that. It was like a spontaneous Halloween wedding, and unfortunately I had like 3 parties that night, and I missed their party, but damn, I didn't know it was a wedding. Anyway, how are we doing? What else? What you got? You got something? Oh, all right. This is kind of like an auction. But I love that story about like glasses, like even just noticing like, what do you have in common? Something so simple as glasses, right? Like I always ask like, where did you get them? I never would have thought to see, like, what is the first thing you saw? What is the first thing you noticed when you wore glasses? So like the possibilities there are endless. And we got about 7 more minutes left. So I want to hear another story. Carrie, what did you learn? Yeah. all the women in the group moved different places for ex-boyfriends? Yeah. The men in our list. I love that. And I think that that's really important to consider, right? I mean, so right now, like we all talk about, the Seattle housing prices, traffic, and how the city is growing by leaps and bounds. But that means we have an opportunity to welcome a whole lot more people into our community, right? And traditionally, I moved here in 1995. Traditionally, like the Seattle freeze was a thing, and it it ran rapid, but like I'm from the Midwest, like we'll talk to anybody, right? And so, you know what? I just decided to double down on my efforts, right? I was like, I'm not buying into this, right? And not only that, like I have this friend of mine, Shango, and he's like, you know what? I have a theory. If you have a gift, you have an obligation to use it, right? So my gift is meeting people, and I'll spend like hours and hours and hours introducing them, like all my friends, like, you ever go to a wedding and there's like two sides, the guy's side or the groom's side and the bride's side, and they're like, oh, how do you know each other? And nobody knows each other, and the wedding is like polarized, like this camp's over here, this camp's over here. That's never gonna happen in my world. Never. Because I like actively try and introduce everybody. Everybody. Like, why not, right? It's a gift to know you. It's an absolute gift. It's a gift to know the person that's sitting next to you, in front of you, behind you, on the bus. On the bus, it's really funny because for a long time I rode the bus from West Seattle to the east side, and that's an hour, sometimes longer, depending on traffic. And I looked at earbuds, and some people wear earbuds just to like not engage, right? But a lot of times I think people are listening. I hope people are listening and stuff. And so I'm like, I'm curious. What are you listening to? I'll actually like pull on people's sleeves. I'll be like, what are you listening to? I really like podcasts. Do you like podcasts? and one time I did that to this guy, and he's like, here's my earbud. He's like, I'm from Iran. And it turned out his dad was like one of the government officials that I was randomly reading an article about how their government works. And he's like, yeah, my dad's involved in that. And I'm here as a student. And I'm like, what? Like, how much richer is my life because I know that story, right? All I did was ask him, like, hey, what are you listening to, right? Take the risk to ask and invite a conversation. Ooh, yay. Yeah? Cassandra has a question. Oh, so what do I want to be remembered for? I asked her to come up with a question before she got here. So that's a doozy. I think I'd like to be remembered for encouraging people to have richer relationships and to look for the little things. Because the little things matter a lot, and to look for the subtle things that we often overlook. If somebody's having a bad day, what's going on? The other day I ran across this woman and she was like, she's just like irritated. And I was like, what's the deal? She was like, well, I missed paying my meter by 6 minutes and the meter guard was there. And I talked him out of a ticket, but he wanted some sort of like, groveling, right? He basically wanted her to grovel, and she wasn't having it. And I was like, and you know what? Now it's over. It's over. Like, don't let that take up any more of your day. And she looked back at me, and she's like, you're right. Thanks for listening. Stupid little things. How do we not listen to each other? Right? I want to leave you with like a really good story, but I'm trying to think of one. Because there's a lot. There's a lot. Like Cassandra and I have a mutual friend, Jill, and I said, well, I don't know. I meet like 1,000 people a year. She's like, you gotta be joking me. And I'm like, nope, it's probably a lot more than that. But like, imagine that. Like, I've got a pipeline of information constantly coming at me. Good stuff. Good stuff. You talked about negotiation. I got really interested when I was working with documentary filmmakers. I met a woman who was working on a film about women in business. And one of the topics was negotiation. And I was like, you know what? I think I kind of suck at that. So let me learn more. So I read everything I could. And then I started asking people, who do you know who's a badass negotiator? Can I talk to them? Can I talk to them? I started finding people like in the New York Times who were like, quoted and stuff like that. And I started calling them up. Hey, listen, can I talk to you about that? What are you teaching in your class? What are you teaching your students? The Second City Comedy Club that like spurned all the great comics that, are household names now. They run like a improv and negotiation class that like brings in like $6 million a year in revenue. And I called the head of that guy, and I asked him, I'm like, hey, listen, can I talk to you? Yeah, I'll give you 30 minutes. So it's like, even just being that curious. Sometimes I get on Twitter. I used to be like a ninja on Twitter, and I just like go through scrolling, land on somebody, and I'll be like, hey, listen, I'll send them a message. Can we talk? I'm so curious about what's going on in your life. Yeah, okay, I'll talk to you. My friend of mine now, we met that way, and he used to be like head of career development. I'm totally butchering this. This is me making up this part of the story. But he was a cyclist and got hit on his bike. This is a good story. He got hit on his bike in a head-on collision, and he was supposed to die, right? And he didn't. But he was laying in a hospital bed in the ICU for 6 months or something like that. And then he had physical therapy and all this kind of stuff, right? And he's laying there looking at everybody, and he's looking at who thrives and who doesn't. What's the difference? And he gets really, really curious. And part of it is just making up your mind that this is not, this is a moment in time, and I'm going to change it, right? This is an incident that is not going to dictate the rest of my life. Right? But while he's laying in bed, he's got a lot of time to think about that. And now he has no issues. He went through physical therapy, worked his ass off. He was supposed to die, and he didn't. What would happen if you were supposed to die? How do you look at life in a whole new way? How does it change how you shape the world? Your world. How does that change your appreciation? You could have, that could have been the day you never saw your family again and you were on a business trip. Hurrying out the door? Kiss your wife goodbye? Wait, how does your life change? I wanted to know. I got on a call with him. Now we talk on a regular basis. So I think that curiosity, that's the theme this month, but the curiosity can extend to everything. Whatever you're interested in. Anything. I get on the phone and I talk to anybody about anything. And I don't need to even know that much about it, right? But even professionally, how can you leverage that? What do you need to know? What's the next step? Who do you need as a mentor? Who's got your back? I got a whole tribe of people here who's got my back today, and it's a beautiful thing. Hello, and I keep finding more and more people that I know here, so it's really cool. But my main goal today is when we leave here. Stay curious. It is a favor to both of you. It's a gift that goes both ways, right? And you will be just shocked at how much more there is. It starts with a pair of glasses, but then where does it go from there? It starts with a hat, but what about dinner? What's your mom cook for dinner? What do you celebrate? How do you celebrate? How do you celebrate with a merge of cultures like that? Who knows where it goes? But be curious enough to follow it. That initial 5-year-old inside of you wants to know. Let it out. Thank you.